Good morning, this is Judy from Artistic Artifacts, and today I am at my friend Barb's house in Henderson, North Carolina. So I did a lecture on Thursday for the Western North Carolina Quilt Guild, which we had a blast, and we were talking about vintage quilts. And then we had a class on Friday with 21 people, and we worked with some of their precious items and creating a memory quilt and kind of on the artsy side, and that was a great success too. Hopefully those of you who are joining us for the first time from the guild were happy and had a way to lean and go into what you were doing and to finish your quilt. If not, you know how to find me. I'm always at Artistic Artifacts in Alexandria, Virginia. So we had a great time with the guild. I am starting to do some traveling and guild lectures and workshops, so just email us at sales@artisticartifacts.com if you're interested in having me come do a program with your guild. I am happy to do that. So as I said, I've had, 3 great days with Barb. Barb's a friend from Northern Virginia who retired down to this area. And she was, she's one of those people who can say, I remember when Artistic Artifacts started. But so I'm going to start by showing you a little bit about what Barb does. Oh. And she's very famous for working with aluminum cans. She does sell her artwork and go to shows, and it's really quite wonderful. Very, very inventive, very creative. I just pulled this down off the wall. She has been featured in Quilt Folk magazine. That's pretty awesome. We were very excited for her. So we hope that you keep continuing to be creative. So now what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a few of the quilts that I showed the guild on Thursday. And it's all about vintage, using vintage. But let's see, Chris is at home in Virginia, so she's going to be taking care of questions. Barb is behind the camera, which she didn't know she was doing that until she had her first cup of coffee this morning. So be kind, guys, be kind. So we have it stationary, we have the mic, we forgot that last week, but so at least we're a step ahead. Announcements, I'm going to let Chris post those. But the big thing is, please make sure you're receiving our email. That's how you can stay in touch with us. That is our main conversation point of letting you know when sales are, what special events are coming up. We just came off a 3-day mixed media retreat that was a resounding success, and look forward to doing that again next year in April. We will post those dates soon, in the next 30 days or so, with kind of a save the date so you know when we're going to do that. We do have a sale on our app coming up. Chris has got that too. Okay, great. Okay, I think that's all the announcements. You would think I would write them down by now. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple pieces. This is a piece, let's see, it has a date and a label on it, which I can't say that's the same for everything. So this is 2011, and I worked on a challenge with Cindy, and she had found some tailors suiting, shirting and stuff, and so we had a challenge that was a power suit. So what is your power suit? At the time this occurred, Lorton jail was releasing photographs that they had taken, and these are photographs that revolve around suffragettes. So I did 2 pieces this size, and they were all photographs from the suffragettes. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they marched on Washington, D.C., and they were promptly loaded into a truck and taken to Lorton prison, and some remained in prison there for quite a while. Okay, so that's one of the pieces. Then as the business started and we started doing classes, we tried to give some ideas on how to use some work. So these are postcards that are printed They have some monoplate printing and ephemera items are there. So these are just two little small ones that used to hang when we didn't have as much product as we have now on the top of racks, showing you some things. So again, it's mixing 3D with fabric, and that's what I'd like you to try. Hopefully these are showing you that. This is one of my little favorites. This is actually from 2014, and these have a frozen charlotte. They are porcelain, and this was glued to a piece that was then sewn to the quilt. So you can take three-dimensional items, glue them to a piece of ultra suede or luchador or whatever, and then Craftex is another good one, and then you can place it on your quilt and it will hold. So this was a really fun piece. I liked this one a lot. Okay. Another early piece, and I have several pieces. This is this way. This was very early. I did this in 2005, which was pretty much when I started quilting. I had not quilted before that, but I had always collected textiles. And this is a hanky. I think hankies are pretty cool because the graphics on them are absolutely wonderful. So this one is the first time with free motion, the first time with layering 3 fabrics together. So you had a front, a middle, and a back, and batting. I had not a clue what I was doing. I just went for it. And so you can see I did a little free motion in there and used all my vintage blue buttons. And I've done 3 or 4 more hanky quilts. I don't think they're quite done. They haven't said they're done yet. So we did show those during the meeting yesterday, but I think they need a little more work.
What is a frozen charlotte?
Frozen charlotte. It is a porcelain 3-dimensional doll that were made in Germany. So what it kind of comes from the mixed media group of people. They were always selling them at some of the shows and things. But there's broken pieces. Because after World War II, they started excavating some of these things, and they are porcelain, 3-dimension, usually have broken pieces because they've been in the ground and they're actually being dug up. So they're very fun. But you can use any kind of doll. How about, do you have a little, a lot of times when we travel, we have these little dolls that we got, maybe Japanese, maybe Peru, those kind of things. All those guys can go on quilts as memories of when you were traveling. See, that's last. This piece was just it was a butterfly that was in a tablecloth. So we dyed it with indigo, and it wasn't just a piece, and I cut the butterfly out and made that the front of the motif, and the back white with black is script. Now if you see, I left the selvage on here too. I included it. As quilters, we all think that the selvage is bad, but the selvage is actually kind of cool. You can see the colorways, you can see the signatures. It just kind of added words to it. And as a mixed media artist, we always are looking for words, especially somebody else's words. So, this is a piece that has been hanging in the store at one point in time also. So this piece has several hankies, white hankies on the back, and use of vintage pins. So there's a vintage fleur-de-lis up here that actually is holding this piece that was just from a gift store about Paris. And then at the bottom, there's a pin there. Now when I use pins, I just pin them to my quilt. You can barely see this, but here it is, it's pinned. I don't take them apart, I don't break them. If they come to me whole, I use them whole. And I just pin them to the quilt. And it kind of holds this guy in here. Some vintage buttons, vintage checker, this is some silk. So this whole piece is using vintage materials. So in 2012, my husband and I purchased Boutique Timbal from Trish and Owen, and she had been a quilter. They had a quilting business when they lived out west, and then they moved to Indonesia, and she came back with this container full of textiles. Like, who can blame her for doing that? I don't need any furniture, I just want the textiles. And they started a business that was called Boutique Timbal. So they wanted to retire. I think I saw they're in Montana right now, so they're retired and having fun and traveling. And so Trish asked me, she says, I challenge you to do a piece that's you. Most of the samples were from Trish, a little bit more traditional piecing. So she says, okay, you got to do a piece. This is going to become your business, so let's show. So I did a piece. She said, no, that's not you. Then we did this one, and she says, okay, this is good. You've done this. So the background, the fuchsia piece is hand-dyed textile. Of course, we have all kinds of buttons and beads and things sewn on. You can see on the bottom there's little pieces, I think, at the bottom.
No, just wiggle it.
Wiggle it. Is it moving?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there it goes. So yes, it makes sound. And then there's lots of hand beading and hand stitching that's on it. So this is a panel that was created by Jaka, who actually is not producing batik panels any longer. And then this is some batik cracked, but this is the vintage piece. So there's a mixture of hand stitching, machine stitching in there, and I've done a couple other pieces with batik panels and using doilies as flowers and hand-dyed doilies and that type of stuff. So I've incorporated the three-dimensional with this as well. And actually, wow, I was doing pretty good with labels. I'm not doing good at labels now. So I was able to, one of the things I do about labels, because we get lots of questions, is I print mine on EQ printables. So I have a Word document that formats, that has the logo, has my basic information, and then I'm just supposed to go in, put the date in, and the title of the piece. I was really good at this for years. Definitely not good now. But it's kind of interesting to see, because I feel like sometimes it's just yesterday when I started this business, but it's really been like 15 years, and it's been an amazing change that's happened. This is a little quickie. This is some embroidery pieces that Orphan Embroidery, and I was like, oh, they're so cute. What can I do with them? So I've used some vintage textiles, and I've taken the embroidery pieces and created a little book. And it's just a book. It's just to look at. It's just to enjoy. So, if you have something, there's a lot of crewel work, hand stitching. You'll see that I have lots of samplers that were hand stitched. I did not do them. They've been orphaned. I took them in, and I use them quite a bit with my art. And all these vintage pins. What was it? Was it the 70s that it was all the big flower pins, 1970s? So I have scoured thrift stores looking for them. So this one, I'm sure you have seen this. This is one of my favorites. I do hang this in my studio. And let's see, this has a label. This is 2013. So this was part of the Beatles challenge by Donna DeSoto, who wrote a book about illustrating the big Beatles songs. And I just couldn't get to it. And then my mom came home from Florida with this great picture of a woman's jazz band. And I was like, okay, well, a big part of my success in my business has been my friends. So I asked her, I said, is A Little Help from My Friends still available? So that's the song that I got. And it really, it means a lot that happened. So you can see I've used jewelry. This is a transfer onto Luchador. So this is a transfer artist paper onto Luchador. That's what gives it some of the stiffness, and all of the items are vintage. And one of the things that we discussed in the class yesterday was, as you use some of these vintage pieces that have lace, you do have to tack them down. So you just lightly do a hand stitch on here, or I added beads or things, because when you're working flat. And then when you go to hang it, you have to think about what's going to happen with that. And so at the beginning, I didn't catch the stuff on the top, so it would flop. Things flop. So remember, you're working horizontal, but your piece is going to hang, and you have to think about what's going to happen to those components at the same time as you're hanging.
June Chase says great inspirations.
Oh, thank you, June. This piece, again, one of my favorites, and I do hang this in my studio, and I have a label on it without a date. So, but it is labeled with my name on it. So this was another challenge piece. So this is, again, Cindy and I put this challenge together, and we had hundreds of people working on these things, and I think the show actually was 100 quilts. So this one, it was arts and old lace. So a friend of hers gave her a bunch of lace. She's like, I can never use this. Let's make a challenge. So we did, and I could not formulate my plan. I had no idea what I was going to do. So it came down to deadlines, which all of us know deadlines, and I said, okay, well, I have this cool corset. So this corset is actually whole. It is a piece that I found, and I thought, okay, well, I'll start that.
What part's the corset?
What part's the corset? Here's the white. So can you see underneath here?
Yeah.
So it's the whole piece. I did not cut the corset. I just pinned it in. So that's there. Then I had this doily, which I just loved, and I had this piece of vintage fabric. I kept carrying it around going, there has to be a life for this piece. I don't know what it is, but there has to be a life. So those three things pulled it together. And then I started assembling. So I have millinery, I have hand dyed, I have some ribbons and things, and I had this ribbon, I had this lace. So it's all about layering for me. So I got to it, and I'm like, okay, well, I have this big blank spot in the middle. What do I do? Because, of course, I work with pictures. I love pictures. And this was hanging on my wall. A girlfriend had given it to me, and she gave me 3 of them, and it was hanging on the wall, and I looked up, and I went, oh, that's it. So I took it off the wall, and I attached it to my quilt. And that's what made the focal piece of this. So I do try hard to not cut things apart if they come to me whole. If someone really wanted to, 100 years down the line, this quilt is still in pieces and it's still assembled, and they wanted to see what a corset looked like, they could take it apart and pull the corset off and look at it. So I do try to do that. I'm not always successful, but sometimes I have to cut things. And I have some other samples to show you when I've done that.
Say hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Barb says hi, Mom, too. So, and then this is a book. So your art can take many forms. And to me, this is still quilted items because I have fabric on the top, I have batting in the middle, and I have fabric on the back. So this one took me a while, and I worked at it over time. And I think that we have a video on the YouTube channel. Chris just posted it that shows you slower than what I'm doing now what is in here. But I really like this. This was pretty fun. And I work on my pieces, if you can see this here. So when I did this, the very last thing I did was stitch down the middle. And my signature is 4 pages, so to speak, for those booky people that you are. But I worked on this, and then I worked on the other side flat, and then put it in, arranged them in what I thought was a good order. So I do all the pages flat until I'm ready to assemble. Hopefully that made sense. And I took lots of vintage. These are printed on fabric, EQ printables. I had just, collected old pictures and I wanted to use them. So that's what's here. All this weird, funky stuff that we've been keeping in drawers, I wanted to get out. And here's another frozen Charlotte that's here. And she has a little place. This actually comes out. And then this was a scissor pouch that had no scissors in it anymore. Okay, there we go. And so that's where she sits. And I just usually had a piece of something tied to hold it closed. And then this was the other thing. I thought this was ingenious. I was so excited about it. So here's a pin that is usually, these big pins were used for laundry bags. And so I took all these shank buttons and a couple of beads on there and I fed them on. I mean, I was like so excited. It was like, it worked. It's so cool. And again, all my buttons are in place. So again, I collect these kind of pins. I've had several given to me and I hold on to them. But one of the things I've found in thrift stores are kilt pins. There's lots of pins where, when I was in school, we wore kilts. So now you have the kilt pins and that will work too. It's a little shorter than the laundry bag pins, but they're easier to find. They're good.
Yes, the quilt will be on the YouTube channel. Yes.
Yes.
Quilt. Chris said we should post it.
Okay, she'll post it?
Yeah.
Which quilt?
The corset quilt.
Corset quilt, okay.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be hurt. Yes.
Barbara's like new at this. She doesn't know she can talk.
Yes, the corset quilt will be on YouTube channel. Chris will get it posted.
Okay, cool. There we go. So, Kyle is usually the one that's behind the camera, as most of you know. And as I said, Barb didn't know she was behind the camera until this morning. I was not going to tell her until she had to. Good. You're definitely a good friend to get thrown into this and not run screaming from the house. This piece I know you've seen too. This is large. This is also Quilt Alliance. I quilted about this quilt. It's a very special quilt for me. It's also on the YouTube channel, I'm pretty sure. And this is a combination of pieces from a friend of mine who passed away. So I took her blocks that existed in vintage Japanese, and I had acquired her vintage Japanese collection, and so I made my own blocks. So this is a partnership with Virginia and I, but it is vintage Japanese. Kimonos, I've had customers, students, I should say, who have, when we've done a panel class, actually brought a piece of kimono in, vintage Japanese. So look at those kind of unusual textiles, and they can become a focal point, they can become added. Needless to say, Virginia really liked Japanese, so I'm sure I'll be doing some more with some Japanese too. Any questions so far?
No, just Chris and Jen telling on me that I'm going camping soon.
Yes, she is going camping. That's okay. So I did mention that we had a mixed media retreat, and it was 3 days, and it was 4 teachers, including myself. And one of the classes was team taught by Liz Kettle and myself. And we had actually started this class idea probably 10 years ago. So I'm going to show you a couple of those. And we're taking vintage linens that have already kind of been destroyed, that they're pieces, there's rips, there's tears. That's all good with us. So we created wild birds. And it is just so fun. So we have some paint here. We had a pattern for birds, and it's a mixture of hand stitching and machine stitching. So we did that. We hope to offer this again, but it will probably be next year at the summit. But these are all these pieces that, we all have. we have all of these. We don't know quite how to use them all, but they can be a very wonderful piece of artwork. This is a doily here. Most of them have paint on them too, which was a thermofax screen. And they're really quite fun. So here. This one. This one. So that's the last one. So those are our wild birds. It's all using pieces of vintage that maybe it's not perfect. Maybe you can only get a little piece about it. And it created that. The idea was you could do a whole quilt in these. You could do a book. You can, you can be separate. You could do multiple singles like this and create a whole wall of fabulous crazy birds.
Chris wanted to remind everybody that you all will have kimono fabric available at your international sale end of the month.
Yes, so on our app, so you need to go to your app store on your phone, on your tablet, or your computer. You go to the app store, you search for Artistic Artifacts. Download the app, create your account, and log in. And we are going through our inventory that is on there, and we'll be offering a sale at the end of the month. This is also the app that we do live sales on. So it gives you, if you get the app, then you're the first to know if there's a discount, if there's an event, if there's a special sale. The items that are on the app are normally ones that are too difficult for us to get up on the website, or we have one. Website is a whole nother ball of wax. This makes it easier for us to sell so much of that unique product that I have collected that is hard to get displayed in the store. So it's a really great tool for us. It's a great opportunity for you to be able to purchase some kits, some special items and things. So we encourage you to go to the app. I know it's a little confusing, but once you get it, you're good. All right, Chris, anything else I need to remind people of? Everybody that's watching?
Several people have said how much they enjoyed the retreat and looking forward to it next year.
Good. Yes, that is the plan. So I'm glad that everybody liked it. That was the news that we got back. I hope we have a few people from the Quilt Guild that will catch up with us as well. And I am going to spend a couple more days in Hendersonville and head home on Monday. So I have some other friends to visit as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Please stay in touch. Facebook Creative Minds is for us to show what you're doing. We're looking for postings. Right now there is a challenge going on. I think it's flowers, May flowers. And we will, for everybody who submits something with flowers on it, your name gets put into for a drawing for a $25 gift certificate. So please participate in the Creative Minds. It's for you. It's for our community. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. See you later. Bye.